Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. I guess it's time to make another video. I feel like I just released the Master System video, but it's been like a month already, and hopefully I can finish this one before we hit a year and actually get a consistent upload schedule, maybe. There's not that many games for the system, so we should be okay. Before we get into everything, though, I do want to give some context for the TurboGrafx history and whatnot, so let's go back in time a little bit. The PC Engine released in Japan on October 10th, 1987, and sold very well, in part because it was mainly competing with the Famicom, otherwise known as the NES in America, which released in 1983. After probably way too many delays, the PC Engine was finally released in America, and now rebranded as the TurboGrafx-16 and released on August 29th, 1989. Also, fun fact, the Sega Genesis, one of the best-selling systems of its generation, was released 15 days before, on August 14th, 1989 in America. So yeah, it goes without saying that the TurboGrafx didn't sell well in America. One of the more interesting things about the TurboGrafx is that it had a CD add-on. It released in Japan on December 4th, 1988, and then November 1989 in America. That's 3 years before the Sega CD would release, making it the first video game home system to support the CD. And then if you're wondering about a worldwide release, yeah, that didn't happen after the failure of the American release. However, some systems did get exported to other countries, so that's neat. You will find them all around, but in terms of official releases, it's only Japan and America. Okay, so what are we actually doing in this video? So I want to try and beat every single TurboGrafx-CD game with massive rules so I don't go too insane. Rule number 1, the games must have unlimited continues. Games that let you save but don't let you restore your resources won't count as an unlimited continue system. Think games on time limits where the save also saves how much time you have left. Being able to continue from a save but having to restart the full game anyways due to having no time left, that kind of stuff. That shit doesn't count. I'm doing this because I'm personally of the opinion that arcade-style limited continue games aren't designed to be beaten. They're really fun to play for a while, but like, just trying to beat Pac-Man sound like any fun? Nah, that's not the point. That actually sounds like hell. Rule number 2 is that the games must have an ending. Do I really need to explain why they need an ending in order to be beatable? I can't beat an endless loop. Rule number 3 is that any ending is an ending. I don't care if you get a different ending at 100%. I don't care if it's a bad ending or a good ending. An ending's an ending and I'm taking that. And then lastly, number 4, I'm not forcing myself to beat games that I've beaten in the past again. It's just a waste of my time. I already know my opinion on these games. I've beaten them in the past. There's just no point. And then yeah, the final thing of note is we will be going through the games in release order. So with that, onto the games. Fighting Street. So this is a port of Street Fighter Arcade for the TurboGrafx-CD. I don't know why I said it like that. But yeah, this game is functional, I guess. I'm not a big fighting game person, honestly, so that doesn't super help. It's rough. The strategy, I played this game for like an hour trying to figure it out, and then eventually the strategy I landed on was to just hold up on the D-pad. That way, anytime your character hit the ground, you like jump. It seems like nothing can really hit you if you're in the air, so that's nice. And then yeah, the TurboGrafx has a turbo button built into the controller, so I just held the turbo button for kick and held up to jump. And I made it halfway through the game, just doing that, holding those 2 buttons. When I was actually trying to play the game properly, I couldn't get halfway through the first fight. So there's like 4 different like starting points you can choose. Because of that, there really is no like difficulty curve, because you know, every fight can be your first fight in the game. It's very repetitive, the game. It's not super long. It does have limited continues, so I didn't beat it because it got disqualified. But I did see the ending. I stumbled upon the level select code, so I did that to see the ending. I managed to see all the fights like properly because I could like choose where to start. So I was able to see everything, but in order to get the ending, you need to do like every fight without dying, and it's all fucked up. So yeah, the ending, it's like a second long. There's nothing here to it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this would be like a perfectly fine game, I guess, but as a launch title, it doesn't really show what the CD is capable of in the slightest. It's not great, especially with there only being 2 launch titles. But yeah, on to the next game. And for our second and final launch game, it is time for Monsters Lair. Yeah, something you might notice instantly, this is a port of Wonder Boy 3 Monsters Lair, not to be confused with Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap. Yeah, this is a game designed for the arcade. It very much feels like an arcade game. You know, it's pretty simple. It's essentially a Wonder Boy game, except every level is an auto-scroller, and then the end of every level has an incredibly short shoot-'em-up section, but you know, it's a shoot-'em-up section nonetheless. But yeah, it is disqualified. It has limited continues. Yeah, I can consistently make it to right around like level 7. There's 14. So yeah, that's fun. I enjoyed this soundtrack a lot. It's got just good vibes. I do wish there was more replay value to it though. I feel like these limited edition games really have to push for replay value, like little secrets and whatnot you could find in the game to like make things different. And I feel like the auto-scrolling nature of this game makes it where every time you play it, it's gonna have the same pacing, and there really aren't any secrets. And it's kind of just the same thing every time, which, you know, that's not super great. I like when you play limited continue games, like the first time through the early levels is like real slow and you're investigating and whatnot, and like by the end of your like playthrough, you just fly through them, go through all the secrets, beat levels in like 30 seconds. It's fun, you know, I like that like evolution of gameplay, you know, where this one really doesn't have it. It's very one note, but it's a good note. Sounds good, plays good, is fun. Would recommend. I do find this launch lineup a bit lackluster though, if I'm being honest. Fighting Straight, I don't think that's a good game at all, really. And then this one, you know, it's fun, but it's one note. And for the launch of a CD system, I feel like the CD is capable of more than a fun arcade port. Just a little bit more. It's a fun game, but I want more. I should probably mention, they didn't have the Wonder Boy branding on this version of the game. They got rid of all the Wonder Boy branding, redid all the sprites to get rid of the branding. Yeah, should probably note that. But yeah, on to the next game. Jack Nicklaus Turbo Golf. This is a game for people with more patience than I have. Yeah, it's a golf game. It goes for this 3D aesthetic and whatnot. Maybe not aesthetic, it's like actually somewhat 3D, with using like all like 2D sprites and whatnot. But yeah, you know, technically it's cool. It's nice. It's great. Yeah. And then you see the game loads a lot slowly. It's very testing of my patience. I will say the game, it has a nice-ish soundtrack. Like the game can be carried by the soundtrack. It's a good song, but you gotta listen to like the same song throughout like an entire course of golf, and yeah, it's slow. You know, the game, it has a lot of load times, so you gotta listen to the same song over and over and over every time it loads, and it got very repetitive very quickly. But you know, for someone more patient than me who wants a slow-paced golf game, there's potential in it. It's not for me. Also, it's disqualified. There is no ending to this game. You can just keep hitting the golf ball, and the golf ball is never going to fight back. You're never gonna break the ball. The ball, it just, you know, it just keeps going forever and ever and ever and ever. Can you believe that? But yeah, strong start to this video. You know, first 3 games all being disqualified, but it's okay because the next game is not disqualified and it's really good. So yeah, I'll see y'all over there. Ys, book 1 and 2. How does one quickly review Ys? Also, before I get into it, I'll probably fuck up and pronounce the name as Wise a couple of times, so future dubs. How many times did I fuck up? Anyways, Ys is a charmingly simple RPG with incredibly bare bones. I kinda love it though. It features 3 dungeons, 2 towns, 2 shops, and a shockingly high amount of bosses. Like, on paper, there is just nothing here. And most noteworthy, it also features bump combat. I enjoyed the bump combat. It kept things feeling very fast-paced, although there is a trick I learned that made farming a lot easier, and that probably affects my opinion. So basically, if you're ever in the lower left corner, just keep walking down, and as you do this, nothing will be able to hurt you. But anything that walks into you will die. It made farming very quick and very simple. Highly enjoyed it. I should probably give a little context. So Ys was originally released in 1987 for the PC-88. I've never played the PC-88 version of the game, but I have tried playing the Master System port. I never got into it. Honestly, I kinda find the game terrible, at least the Master System version. Kinda hate that game. Point is, this is a game I'm familiar with, and I kind of went into it expecting to hate it, but this game adds in faster gameplay, those huge animated cutscenes. Love the anime cutscenes. You're probably watching one right now. It's fantastic, and just a significantly better translation of the game, and this is a game I expected to hate. I ended up loving it. Yeah, very good. Praise aside, I do think it's worth noting my enjoyment of this game was heavily affected by me streaming it. Ys is a very simple game, and I think I'd lose interest trying to play it on my own, but you know, throw up a YouTube video, just do something else while playing it, and that shit fucking slaps. Also, some of the mazes/dungeons in this game are brutal. The final dungeon of Ys 1 is about 25 floors, and if you miss any one of multiple key items, you're fucked, and we'll need to research everywhere for them. Also, it's possible to lose all of your key items while you research the area, so, ask me how I know that. Then Ys 2's final area broke me. I'll put up a gameFAQs map on the screen now. Basically, it's small 6 towns, 3D towns at that. They have multiple levels, and each level is intertwined with one another, each town's intertwined with one another, and each building in each town has multiple rooms that you gotta go through. And then under the town, there's a large sewer maze that's a mess to navigate around, and also has multiple levels, and it's just a mess. It was too much for my brain. It was fun. I screamed a lot. It put me fucking through it. I think I spent half my playthrough of Ys 2 just in that one area. It's a lot. But back to Ys 1 though. The plot. Like gameplay, it's pretty simple. The evil guy wants to destroy the world, find the 6 books of Ys to stop him. It's pretty simple shit. Then Ys 2's plot. Honestly, I didn't really follow it. Ys 2 is a much larger game featuring a fast travel system and a lot of just everything. Most of the game's plot was spent walking into a village, learning of some kidnapped person, saving that person, and, you know, having a nice jolly little time. It's simple in the small picture, but I definitely lost the overall plot multiple times. Ys 2 also adds in a magic system. This was mainly used so that you have a long-range attack for boss battles. Well, not a bad mechanic, and it does add a little bit more depth to the game. I feel like making the bump combat less important made less 2, in turn, less unique. And as a whole, I do find Ys 2 to be the weaker game due to that slight loss of uniqueness. It's still a very solid game, but just lost a bit of the charm. In terms of my experience trying to beat this game, everything went pretty smoothly, slowly at times. There was a lot of times where I was stuck and had to farm a lot, but you know, it went smoothly. Although the final boss of Ys 2, that fight's hard. I spent a good few hours on it. It's a fun fight though, but very difficult. I know I've said this about every game, but the soundtrack's amazing. There's something so incredible about bumping into a guy and watching him slowly die from the simplest combat system possible, while the music is just fucking going off. It's a great time. My final thoughts on Ys is just why wasn't this game a launch title? This is the first game that really takes advantage of the CD medium, and it's just a fantastic game. I'd go as far as to say delay the entire system's release until this game is ready. It's that good. Fantastic game. Alright, on to the next one. Valis 2! So, I know this is a series that people talk about a ton, so I thought this game was gonna be something, different. My expectations were not in place. This is my first Valis game I'm playing, because Valis 1 was not released on this console. It seems that it might have gotten a remaster in, like, 1992 in Japan. That wasn't released over here, and also this game is releasing in the year 1990, so, you know, do with that what you will. But yeah, Valis 2, it goes for something. I do appreciate its, like, scope. Essentially, it's got, like, a full, like, anime-ass plot and like all the animation for it and voice acting for it. Every time you beat a level, you get a whole long cutscene, and also every time you get to the final boss, there's like a whole like dialogue exchange between you and the final boss, and like it's cool. I like how they handled the plot. With that being said, the game is a little over an hour long and the gameplay kind of sucks. It's just not designed very well. I didn't like the design of it much at all. The main problem with the game was how it does the Castlevania thing, where when you die, you respawn with the weakest version of your weapon. When you kill enemies, there's a chance of them dropping like an upgrade. That's nice, that's cool and all. Except it takes so long to find any weapon upgrade, and a lot of the time enemies come at you so fast to where you have to have really good reaction time. That's cool, that's fine and all. But when you spawn in with a weak weapon, you're gonna have to hit enemies a lot in order to kill them, which means there's like no physical way in order to kill a lot of the enemies without getting hurt when you have the weak weapon. Yeah, it's not good. There's one of the levels that has this mid-boss a good like 5 times throughout the level or some shit. It happens constantly. This game does the same trick over and over and over. It's very, very, very repetitive, despite only being like an hour long. But yeah, the boss will just slowly keep walking over to you and then trap you in the corner. You'll be forced to take damage if you can't kill the boss fast enough, and there's no way you can kill the boss fast enough unless you have a fully upgraded weapon. Just trying to give examples of what this game's design is like. Like, it will just force you to take damage and die sometimes. And to make matters worse, it's unlimited continues. It should not be, at all. I'd borderline say this game doesn't need any continues. Because what happens is when you game over, you spawn 1 with the weakest weapon, which you can't do much with, and 2, you spawn with almost 0 lives. And this game has a ton of checkpoints. Essentially, it almost works like a shoot 'em up, to where lives are essentially just more health. When you die, you're really never gonna actually lose progress. You might need to like refight like a single enemy. Yeah, gaming over and having to play the game with a terrible weapon and just no health. It's not good. Honestly, I'd recommend just fully restarting the game if you game over. I wouldn't recommend using the continue system, which is kind of insane to say. I mean, that's what I did. I made it near the end of the game, and then I was like, this would be easier if I just restart it. And then I restarted it and beat the game, like, really easily. I beat the game with a good, like, I want to say, like, 5, 6 extra lives at the end, and that was without gaming over. Like, yeah, wild that this game has unlimited continues. Also, there's no, like, difficulty difficulty options or anything. There's no second loop, there's no difficulty options, there's no reason to replay the game. There's no replay value here, which kinda sucks. Yeah, Valis 2. You got this really well done, executed animation and plotline and music. I really like the music. Also, I really like the music in the Use series. I didn't mention that in that review, but yeah, all of the music so far on the TurboGrafx CD has been really, really, really good. Yeah, then you get into the gameplay of Valis 2, and it just all falls apart. I mean, it's fine to spend like an hour in. I'm not gonna like highly like recommend against it if you want to spend an hour playing the game, sure. But yeah, I was highly disappointed. On to the next game.
A high voltage energy wave is approaching us!
Final Zone 2. So this is my first time actually beating one of these top-down run-and-gun games and whatnot. Yeah, it was a good time. I had fun with it. So, the voice acting. The voice acting's kind of terrible, which also doesn't help because the game's plot, I don't know what was happening. I don't know. It's a mess plot-wise. You are in space, like, and then the space station collapsed down to Earth, and then you just kind of start killing everyone on Earth. And then you find someone who is evil, question mark, and then you give them the chance to kill you, and then they don't, and then you kill them, and I don't know. But yeah, the actual gameplay itself and whatnot, it's fun, you know, it's decently difficult. This is by far the most difficult game I've done on this challenge so far. Not too bad though, not too bad. The game only features about 7 levels, and most levels took me a couple tries, but you know, I wouldn't say any level took me more than like 5 or so, right around there. You know, nothing too bad, nothing too bad. I think in total this game took me about, you know, I think about 3 hours, somewhere around there I'd say. Nothing too bad. I wish it was longer. Like, the TurboGrafx-CD lineup, it's pretty small, and like, we keep having all these like short games, and it's kind of a shame. You know, like, these games, you know, they're fun, they're good. I had a good time with this game, but yeah, you know, I wish there was more, just longer stuff. The soundtrack, per usual with the TurboGrafx-CD, very good in parts. There's some songs that are like incredible, and other songs that like, there's nothing going on. That's this entire game, let's be honest here. It's a very hit or miss game. But it's a fun one. Yeah, but I'm thinking of ranking like all of the games I play. I'm coming up with this in the middle of making this video, because of course I am. So yeah, here's my current rankings of the games that haven't been disqualified. Okay, so in last place, we got Valis 2, and then in second place, we got Final Zone 2, and now for the grand reveal, dun 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 dun. In first place, we got East Book 1 and 2. But yeah, alright, on to the next game. This one's fun. Last Alert is another run-and-gun game, except this time made by Lasersoft, the same people who made Valis 2. Lucky for me, who's playing 2 run-and-gun games back-to-back, this one had very different pacing. This one focuses a lot more on the run part of the run-and-gun, where Final Zone 2, really, I had to take my time, try not to die. This one you just go. Honestly, I kind of focused on the running too much. In the later levels where there's a tight time limit, I found it easier to just run past everything, that way I had enough time for the boss and didn't rush over there, because the time limit was killing me more than the enemies. All in all, I didn't really find this game's difficulty to be that high. For the most part, levels took on average maybe 2 tries. Most of them were 1 try, honestly. The game was too easy to really make a mark. However, this was made by the Valis 2 people, so as you'd expect, it does feature a ton of fully animated and voice-acted cutscenes. I found the art to be really well done in these cutscenes, so I might just be horny for man boobs. A lot of people say this game features the worst voice acting of any game, and yeah, it's rough. Though honestly, I found it charming in that cheesy 80s action flick kind of way. It's cool, I like it. Honestly, it was like one of my favorite parts of the game. So yeah, Last Alert. It's a perfectly fine, maybe a little bit unmemorable video game with good cutscenes. I found it better than Valis 2, though, so seems improving, that's nice. Alright, on to the next game. Magical Dinosaur Tour. I don't know why I had such high expectations for this game. I think it was just the name Magical Dinosaur Tour. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, so Magical Dinosaur Tour. It is basically encyclopedia just all about dinosaurs. You know, there's not much to it. There really isn't. You can learn about every dinosaur's name, what it's related to, how long it is, some basic facts here and there. There's just not much to it, you know? It's yeah, definitely designed for for children who love dinosaurs, but even then, it's not that magical, and I'm kind of really disappointed in it. Yeah, somehow this game isn't disqualified. There is, in fact, an ending. In the main menu, there's like 6 different options, and one of those is to play a little movie about the extinction of dinosaurs, and at the very end of it, there are credits, and there is an end screen. So, yeah, did that, you know? I launched the game, I was all excited, played it for like 20 minutes, and then the game was like, the end, dinosaurs died, and it was like, okay. I don't have much to say about this one. I don't know, the art's nice. The, like, one proper, like, CD song. Most of this game uses, like, the 8-bit songs and whatnot, but the CD song's good. I like the art for the most part in that movie. It's very well done. But, yeah, I wish it was more magical. On to the next game. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. So this is a game that I respect, I guess. I respect it. This is our first game that features FMV. I'm kind of shocked at the lack of FMV so far on this console, so that's really cool. I feel like that's all this game has, though, really. Essentially, what you see on screen for the UI, like, is the game. You don't, like, go to any new locations or anything. The game is, you have a list of people that you can talk to. You click on the person's name, and then if they have a cutscene for you, it plays. During each case, there's 3 different cases. You gotta talk to all of the interesting people and get all the facts, and then you go to court, where they, like, give you, like, a little quiz about paying attention to the plot. You know, there's not much to this game. There's really not. I respect the FMV, that's nice, that's cool, but very, very simple. And on top of that, I do have issues with it. There's no subtitles, which I found to be a massive problem, at least for me personally, because you gotta pick out all these names from the list, and you hear the names in the cutscenes, which is nice and cool, but you gotta keep in mind, this is 1991 FMV, the sound mixing is not great in the slightest, and characters talk very fast at times, and being able to catch a person's name and figuring out how they spell that name is a problem. Yeah, just trying to figure out how people spell names is a mess. And then I also had problems with the plot for each story. They didn't have as much depth as I really wanted. A lot of the plots, like, really spoiled themselves. There weren't really, like, any plot twists or anything in the plots. You know, it was very much like, oh, this guy has a motive for murder, and then cut, like, 20 minutes later, oh, that guy did it, and it's like, okay, I guess. You know, it just didn't really get my interest, you know? There wasn't much, mystery to it all. It was very, simple. Also, the characters were pretty, normal. They were pretty normal, and it just wasn't as interesting, you know? There were, like, 2 old ladies who rambled to one another and finished each other's sentences. Those old ladies were great. The rest of the characters in the game, I don't know, they're just like, oh, this guy died? That's sad. I was at work. And it's like, okay, I guess, sure. I don't, like, care to listen to that, though. Not really. But, yeah, that's Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. It's a game that uses FME, and that's cool. Technologically, cool game. On to the next one. JB Harold Murder Club. So, I have something to admit. I've played this game before, and as such, I will not be replaying this game today, because I played this one a couple months ago. This game is 1,000,000 hours long. I am okay. I do love this game, though. This game's cool. I would recommend, but it's a mess. How do you talk about JB Harold? Basically, this is another detective game. Yes, of course, they released the 2 detective games back to back on this console, because this console loves internal competition. But a guy has been murdered, and you gotta figure out who murdered him. It turns out every single person in the town has a motive for murder, and every single person hates this murdered man a ton. They are all spiteful and want to end this man's life. It's kind of great. JB Harold is like the one detective game I've played that, like, actually feels somewhat like an investigation. Just, this game's difficult as fuck. This game will try and break you completely. Like, every single character will lie to you constantly, and the only way to get them to stop is to ask them, like, the same question 50 million times, and eventually they'll admit stuff. They'll lie about the littlest shit. I kinda love it. Also, like, you gotta explore the same rooms, like, 50 million times in order to sometimes find an item. You know, eventually you might go to a room, and someone will forget to, like, hide something, and then boom, new lead and whatnot. Yeah, this game took me 1,000,000 hours, if you can't tell. I got stuck in this game a ton, but I don't know, there's something about running around the town for hours and hours, unable to find anything, and then when you finally get that lead, it's just very, very, very satisfying. Also, this game features full voice acting for everything. It's great, it's amazing. Soundtrack, I really like this game's soundtrack, I do. I say that about almost every game, but this one's cool. I like it. Also, this game starts with a full like 10-minute long opening that's just like jazz playing as they like show like aesthetic pictures of the game, and like it's fucking amazing. I love it. I love it. It's so good. It's so fucking good. You know, for a little side tangent, and for the people who are paying attention to this video, I've already written a review of this game before. Shout out to Retro Games Through Depths on neocities.org. If anyone's able to find that website, yeah, I kept up with that for a little bit. That's all me. And last thing I gotta talk about when it comes to this game. Content warning for everything. This game features a lot, so yeah, try not to spoil it, because you should play it. This game's gonna try and break you, but you should play it. You should play it. But yeah, on to the next game. Let's go. The Addams Family. But yeah, we're talking about the Addams Family today. This is one of our very few American exclusive games for the TurboGrafx-CD. So it's a pretty typical action platformer. Maybe not. It's a little linear. Not really. It's weird. Essentially, there's a mansion with 25 rooms in it. This game is very, very, very short. More on that later. And in the mansion, you gotta find keys. When you find a key, that'll unlock a door somewhere. Inside that door, there's most likely another key. Repeat the process like 5 times. There's a couple bosses here and there throughout the game. And then you get to the dungeon, sewer, labyrinth, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and that's where the game's true nature kind of really starts to show. So yeah, this game is disqualified, fun fact, because this game has 0 continues. It's not limited, there are 0. Yeah, in this labyrinth part, there are multiple pathways, and if you choose the wrong pathway, they will just kill you. They will, you know, restart the entire game, and it's like, oh, okay. There's no way to know what's the wrong pathway, except for trial and error, so that's fun. Honestly, this game feels like it was designed for the TurboGrafx 16. This game really doesn't take advantage of the CD whatsoever. This game is once again incredibly short. It's like 25 rooms. I did beat it. It is disqualified, but I did beat this game because, you know, I was like, whatever. It's like a second long. In terms of the CD, like they play the theme song to the Addams Family, and that's like really all they do with it, and it's like, okay, fair enough. Like they do have cutscenes, like voice acted cutscenes, and they're funny because they take screenshots of, I guess, the movie and just put them on the screen for the entire length of the cutscene. Only one screenshot per cutscene, and it's like, yep, okay, I'll just stare at this man's face for the next like 3 minutes as they talk about getting gold or something. I don't know, the plot's not super strong in this game. It's really not. It's a perfectly fine, below average, licensed movie game. I don't know. The game's a second long. How much can you like hate it? You know, like it's poorly made, but you know, whatever. Alright, it's been a little bit. Let's rank some more games. Also worth noting, the Addams Family is once again disqualified because it features 0 continues. But starting off the actual ranking will be Vasteel. It'll be taking spot number 4. It was better than Valis 2, but worse than the other run and gun game, Battlezone 2. Then Magical Dinosaur Tour will be taking spot number 7, our new worst game. Even then, it's still honestly not that bad. It's just not for me. I'm not that interested in dinosaurs. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective has landed in spot number 6. Honestly, this game did very little, and what it did do was done very poorly, in my personal opinion. Just all around, not amazing. Lastly, JB Harold Murder Club will be taking 2nd place. Fantastic detective game. Love a game that breaks me. Love this game. But all in all, I still don't feel like we've played a game that's like actually that bad. All in all, these games have all been very, very good for this console. Having a great time going through this. But yeah, on to the next game. Ys 3, Wanderers from Ys. So, this is no longer a typical RPG, the series, apparently. I didn't know that going into this game, so yeah, I was very shocked to turn it on and figure out it's a Zelda 2-like. Now, honestly, that's a good thing for me. I love Zelda 2. It's my favorite game of all time, I think. By Zelda 2-like, I mean essentially just an action platformer with a leveling system, items, and a little bit of not linearity. What's also interesting about this game is it doesn't feature an overworld, really. There is technically an overworld map where it lets you choose which level to select, but yeah, I was kind of shocked that they didn't have an overworld. Like, even Zelda 2 has an overworld. All in all, I found these levels to be pretty alright. They're decently short, though. This game in general is decently short. I was kind of highly disappointed in the length of it all. It took me about 6 hours. For context, Ys Book 1 and 2, it took me about 25, and I don't know why, but I went into this game expecting this to be about as long as Ys Book 1 and 2. It's not. It's really not. That 6 hours, I was playing through this game incredibly slowly. Like, there was multiple points in this game where I got to, like, the final boss of the level, but by the time I got there, I had already used a lot of my resources, so I had to backtrack all the way through the level again, backwards, to go back to the main town, get some more items and whatnot, and then go through the level to the boss boss again to win. That happened a lot. Essentially, I feel like I did every level a good 3 times, and even then, it still felt very short. With that being said though, the levels are overall well designed. I did enjoy the enemy placement and the difficulty and whatnot. I enjoyed it. I will say this game is a little bit on the easier side. I would like for it to be more difficult. A part of that easier difficulty is because this game keeps the mechanic where you're allowed to save at any point. All you really have to do in order to make it through the game is be able to defeat a single enemy without taking damage, save, and then just repeat. You know, like difficulty-wise, I wish it was harder. Per usual with these TurboGrafx-CD games, the soundtrack's amazing. I gotta note that. I feel like a broken record every time I talk about the soundtrack, but it's so good. It's so good. You know, it always is. And then this game's opening animation is incredible. Like, I thought the East 1 and 2 opening animation was really well done, but this one, oh, it's even better. Talking about the animations though, I was a little bit disappointed in the lack of large cutscenes and whatnot. You have your large cutscene at the start of the game, and your large cutscene at the end of the game, and that's about it, which, you know, makes sense because the game is on the shorter end, but I wish they had more cutscenes just throughout the game in general. I wish there was more animation and whatnot. Like, for such a short game, I wish they, like, really, like, used all of the CD storage medium. Like, yeah, it's short, but also, with it being short, you can get away with having a cutscene, like, every 30 minutes or some shit, you know? Like, you can really make that work, you know? Like, a short game can fire all cylinders at all times and not, like, burn out. Also, the boss fights I found to be surprisingly well balanced. They're still a little easy, but there is an item you get near the end of the game that gives you invincibility for, like, a ton of seconds. And, you know, I thought that item would completely break the game, and for the most part, it kinda sorta does. But the bosses still have at least some semblance of difficulty, even with them giving you an item that makes you invincible for the majority of the fight. So, good on them. Good balancing, somehow. I feel like I always talk about the story in these games, but honestly, I never really have anything to say. I'm not a big person who focuses on the stories. I feel like this one had maybe slightly more going on than the other East games. Slightly. Like, there's a side plot. This one, it's like, oh, you gotta collect the statues, the 4 of them, to save the world from the evil man. But there's also a little side plot of random person who used to be good and now he's bad. And then you gotta teach him to be good. And that arc lasts a couple seconds. It ends with you being trapped in a cave with him for literally 3 seconds, and then he's like, oh, I'm trapped in a cave, I guess I'm good now. It's like, okay. Final thoughts? Good game, very good game, very, very good game. Wish it was longer though. Also, I'm curious to see where the East series goes from here. This is our final East game release for the TurboGrafx-CD, but I might need to keep playing the series. You know? Like, where are they going from here, you know? Because when I think of East, or at least before this project, I thought of East as being a bump combat game, which, okay, cool. And then the second game started to get rid of that. This game doesn't have any bump combat in the slightest. So, like, what the fuck are they doing in the 4th game? Where is this going? I have no idea about this series. I don't. And I kind of love it, you know, completely blind. But yeah, on to the next game. It Came from the Desert. I hate this game. I despise this game. I've played this game before and I hate it. I hate it. Yeah, this game is the sole reason why the rule of I'm allowing bad endings exists, because, fun fact, this game is on a time limit, and after about an hour, the game cuts to a bad ending where the ants take over the world, and then it says the end, and then you get a credits scroll. And you know, I'm counting that. Is that the proper ending of the game? No, but I'm counting it because I don't want to play this shit. I hate this game. So, what is It Came from the Desert? This is a port of a Amiga game that's been very heavily remastered to feature a ton of FMV. Honestly, the FMV stuff's really cool, just technologically. This game has really good use of FMV, except for what they say in the script and the everything, but, you know, whatever. I think it's the main problem with the game. It's like 90% of your time in this game is spent watching the FMV, like genuinely 90%. Like, there's times when I'm playing this game where I'm like forgetting it's even a game. And like the writing, it just, it's not for me. It's not for me. Like, the very first joke in the game is the main character that you play as mixing up the words homo sapien with homosexual. So yeah, I feel like that sets the bar pretty well, honestly, for what this game is. This is also one of those games, this was a trend in the 90s, and I don't really understand why, where like games where just every single person is the worst possible person they can be, just cause. Maybe it's meant to be funny. I don't find it funny watching an entire town of people who are just pieces of shit. I just find that just bad vibes. I don't know, like, ooh, yay. Like, is there anyone out there who's like, yay, I got home from work, let me play this game where everyone is terrible. I love being surrounded by terrible people. Maybe there are people like that. I guess that's Twitter. But yeah, so, cool FMVs. The script's terrible, just awful. I hate this game. And then the gameplay is taken from an Amiga game. If anyone here has ever looked into the Amiga, you understand why that's a problem. I'm sorry, British people, but the Amiga, the games in it it are terrible. I understand it was cheap, I understand it had thousands and thousands of games, and that's a really impressive library on paper, but if you've ever played a single Amiga game, you understand. It's not a system that you want to play, ever. And yeah, I hate this game. I don't even want to talk about it. I hate this game. On to the next one. Valis 3. So this one was really good. I was very pleasantly surprised by this game because Valis 2, if you need a recap, was a game that had really cool cutscenes, a ton of potential. I did not like the game design in the slightest. So yeah, very pleasantly surprised by this game. A part of what makes this game so much better is that enemies no longer take 50 million hits. On average, they take about 2. I'd say a lot of enemies you can kill in 1 hit, a couple that take 3. It's nothing much. That and we now have a magic system and a slide mechanic, and they use that slide mechanic a ton. Like, really well done slide mechanic. It allows you to slide through the air to get across gaps, and it's just cool. I wish it was explained ever so slightly better, though honestly the manual probably explains it, and I just casually didn't look at the manual, so, you know, whatever, that's my fault. But yeah, while we do have the cutscenes like Valis 2 has, and honestly I think these cutscenes might be slightly better, there are less of them though. But the opening cutscene, very, very well done. The ending cutscene, alright. I will say, the voice acting in this part of the TurboGrafx-CD's life, I do think the voice acting is getting slightly worse. I wonder if by this point in the system's life they're realizing that the CD add-on's not gonna save the system in America, so they're putting less budget into localizations. I kinda get that feeling. But yeah, big fan of the cutscenes. But the star of the show here is the level design, surprisingly. They've really made it work. I was very, very happy with it. Levels now actually have like a ton of platforming and whatnot, and they love to like mix the enemies with the pits, and it's just very good. It's very, very good. There's so many little mechanics to the platforming. I like don't even know how to really like describe it all. There's one where like you gotta use like freeze magic to freeze enemies, to like jump over like a million small pits, and you gotta be very, very, very careful with not wasting any magic, and it's all very tight jumps, and it's just very, very well done. They understand the limitations of their controls very well. You know, just mixing of mechanics and having them all combined in different ways, and like, it's just good. So talking about the lives mechanic and whatnot, because in Valis 2, when you died, they essentially just respawned you like immediately right next to where you died, and it was kind of a massive problem because they couldn't really design difficulty properly for each level. Like, I think, did you even die in the middle of boss fights? I swear on the final boss of Valis 2, I took like 5 deaths and it was like fine. It was essentially just extra health. But in this game, lives work more like a normal action platformer, where when you die, they send you back to like the last checkpoint, and there's normally only like 2 checkpoints in a level, and they also send you back to the start of the boss, and it works significantly better. But yeah, they send you back to the start of the boss. This is a problem in my #1 complaint about the game, even though it's not that strong of a complaint, but you know. So this game has a magic mechanic, right? So when you cast magic, it gives you invincibility frames, and this is really important for boss fights and whatnot, because some bosses just have moves that you cannot avoid, so you just need the iframes. That's fine, that's cool and all, it works. These boss fights are very much designed around that mechanic. They understand the mechanics very well when designing this game. But when you respawn directly at the boss, there's no chance for you to collect any magic before fighting them. So essentially what happens is you go through the level. The levels are decently long, I don't know, I'd say around 5-10 minutes or so. So you go through the 5-10 minute level, then you get to the boss, you have 1 try at it, and then if you die at the boss, now you're gonna respawn, except without the magic, which means you don't have a way to dodge a ton of stuff. So you're kind of just fucked. It's not a major problem for the majority of the bosses in the game, though. I'm mainly talking about the final boss. It's mainly when the bosses get, like, difficult that it becomes a problem. But, yeah. I wish the checkpoints were just slightly farther back, rather than in the boss arena. Like, push the checkpoint a little farther back. That way the player can go through the level a little bit and just get some resources before going into the boss every time, you know? Give them a little something. I don't know. I felt like it made gameplay very slow, just because I had to spend so much time getting to the boss, and then I would fight the boss for, like, 30 seconds, and I would be like, okay, time to spend the next 10 minutes going through the level again, because I died. Skill issue. But yeah, that's probably all I have to say. Let's move on to the next game. This one's really good though. Yeah. Cosmic Fantasy 2 is another game by Lasersoft, and as far as I know, it's their first attempt at an RPG. So as I've come to expect from Lasersoft, especially when they try out new genres, this game isn't very original while also being heavily underbaked. And while I don't know what happened when making this game, but it's underbaked to the point where half your spells are used to clear status effects, okay? Cool. There's no status effects in the game. All these spells do nothing. So that's strange. Though if I'm honest, I feel like the underbaked nature of the game gave it a very, very chill vibe as something I'd play while listening to a podcast just to chill out. Honestly, there were multiple times I was playing the game while tired, and I would do multiple fights in a row with my eyes closed, just because I could. That's how simple the game is. While I was cool with the fights mechanically, what I wasn't cool with, and what I think is borderline game-breaking, was the encounter rate. It cannot be overstated how many things get ruined due to this encounter rate, and here are some of the things that bothered me. I never had to farm for levels, as I was highly overleveled for the majority of fights. Not only removing the risk versus reward of trying to beat the game quickly without dying, but also removing all strategy from the fights as I was just that overpowered to where nothing really mattered. The game constantly throws you into new areas with multiple locations and tells you to explore. If you explore these areas in the wrong order, you won't progress. For a small-scale example, there was a section where I was put into a teleporting maze, mildly annoying, but okay. I finally found my way to the exit and it just wouldn't let me out, so I ended up backtracking through the maze and I finally found a child who told me to find the exit. And only then, after backtracking to the exit, was I able to leave. Dumb shit. This stuff would be annoying in any game, especially with how often it happens in this game, but it would just be annoying, nothing major. Now factor in some of these locations are very far from one another, and with how high the encounter rate is, it takes forever to move anywhere. Checking the wrong location can legit take over an hour, only for all of the time to be wasted. But at least you'll be able to keep all that experience and money you gained through exploring, right? And one of Cosmic Fantasy 2's more interesting choices, your party is constantly changed throughout the story. It is extremely common to have party members who join you for one dungeon then leave you for the rest of the game. Also taking all items you gave them when they leave. Luckily in this case, not for the game in general, but in this case, items are priced insanely low to the point of being borderline free. This does remove any sense of trying to save up for that big new item, or even the risk of saving up for a new strategy. But at least you're not punished when your party members leave you forever. Talking more about the items, mainly armor and weapons, the shop's manual don't include any sort of stats on these items. The only way to know how useful an item is to buy it and try it out yourself. Not a major problem with the items being borderline free, but strange choice. Can you tell with how much I'm rambling that this game took me over 30 hours? Honestly, this is the first game in the challenge where I really wasn't sure if I was gonna make it through. It was a rough one. Talking about the graphics though, as you'd expect from a Lasersoft game, we have some amazing cutscenes here that look fantastic. Very well done cutscenes, by far the most polished part of the game. Gotta give them huge credit for that. However, this is a 30-hour long game and features 30 minutes of cutscenes. An impressive stat for the time to have 30 minutes of cutscenes, but during the 29.5 hours where you're not in a cutscene, this game kinda looks like shit. It's just lacking. I was hoping with a name like Cosmic Fantasy, we'd be able to explore new planets and get really creative with it and just do a ton. There's so much you can do with the idea of traveling the entire universe. But what we actually got was one type of town, one type of castle, a grass overworld, a brown cave, a warehouse-style dungeon, and then a little bit of snow. And that's it. It's incredibly unoriginal, and it's shocking how well done the cutscenes are compared to how bad the rest of the game looks. Lastly, the story. It has a very strong start with the evil guy trying to take over the world who stole your childhood girlfriend because she's secretly a magical princess. Followed up a couple hours later with you finally fighting the big evil guy, only to lose so badly on the first turn of the fight that you get sent 20 years into the future. Seeing the world after 20 years of being under the evil guy's ruling is cool. It's neat. I enjoyed it. And then the last story beat. I won't spoil it here because it really is a major spoiler and plot twist, and honestly one of the main reasons to play the game, just to see where it's going. I'm not gonna spoil it. But all in all, it's well done. I do wish that final plot twist had a bit more stuff setting it up, making the twist a bit more shocking, a bit more impactful, but well done overall. I will say though, every part of the game between the major story parts felt soap opera-esque. A lot of your time story-wise in the game is heading into a new town, getting a new party of members, and then saving a person or killing a villain. It didn't do a great job growing on itself, it just kept adding more. That, and I wish the characters themselves were a bit more interesting. They're all very one-note. So that's Cosmic Fantasy 2, a game I honestly should probably hate, but with all that being said, I really did enjoy the change of pacing for most games on the system, and it felt very good to just have another longer one on here. Had a good time. On to the next game. Lords of the Rising Sun. So this is probably going to be my most controversial argument of this video, but I did disqualify this game due to lack of a continue system, and that's controversial because this game does have a save system, which blurs the line a ton. So my argument is, this is a strategy game that is very heavily based on your resources. To my understanding, there really is no way to gain back resources that you've previously lost. Not necessarily. You know, this is a game where if you fuck up at the start or you're just kind of fucked, which means when you lose a round, you should probably just restart. But there is a save system, which will allow you to continue your game from wherever you saved. This is a very nice feature for, you know, leaving the console and coming back to it at a later date. That way you don't need to leave the disc spinning at all times and whatnot. It's very nice. But yeah, I don't think it's a continue system, being able to like pick up the game exactly where you left off. You know, you don't necessarily have a continue point or checkpoint. There are no checkpoints throughout the game. The only thing you can do is leave the console and then come back to it and pick up where you left off, which I feel like you can technically do in any game just by leaving the console on like overnight, you know? I feel like it's just mechanically different. I don't know. I put a good bit of time into it. I put about 2 hours or so into it to really try and think about it. But yeah, like I had multiple runs where like I just kind of fucked up in the start and needed to fully reset the game, essentially, you know? And if I'm restarting from the start every single time, it just doesn't feel like a continue system. Also, I'm gonna be honest with you. Once again, this is a strategy game. This might be my least favorite genre of game ever. I'm not a fan of strategy games. I'm really not. With that being said though, I had a good time with the 2 hours I put into this one. It has a lot of little mini games. Those mini games are like a little fun. It has a lot of variety to it. That's like all there is. I don't know, there was variety. Like something was happening in a strategy game, so that's something. Other than that, I sure watched my little people walk to a town and then get killed. There's not much here for me. There's just not. It looks pretty at times. I don't have anything to say about it. I don't. Like, it's a strategy game. You sit there and you try and make your number go up, and then it goes down, and it's like, well, oops. It might suck at these games. I might. On to the next one. Splash Lake. Whoa. I don't know what to say about Splash Lake. I did play through it to the main ending. There is a new game plus, but I did play through it to the main ending, and honestly, I just don't know what to say, really. You're a duck ball thing, and you bounce on the tiles, and eventually you break the tiles, and then you can break the tiles into making enemies fall in water. Did you know about that? I don't know, it's pretty simple. It's a fun little puzzle game. Though even then, I kind of hesitate to call it a puzzle game because it's kind of more just chaos. Like, there's definitely like a puzzle element to it, but it's more so me just running around trying not to hit enemies and whatnot. You also have a high jump. You do. That's a mechanic. There's not a lot of mechanics in the game. That's about it. You know, you break the tiles and you jump in the air and hopefully you don't die. You can take 3 hits, but also please don't fall in the water. That will be an instant kill. But yeah, it's a fun little puzzle game. That final level for the main story is hard. It took me 90 minutes of going insane. I went a little crazy playing this game, and it doesn't help that the music, like, fully knows that this is a game to go crazy during. It is very much fucked up clown music. It reminded me most of Illbleed, this game's soundtrack, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that was something that happened. I think that's just what this game is. It's something that happened. You know, I don't have any complaints, really. I don't know, what you see on screen is what you get. That's the game. There's not really any, like, ending cutscenes or beginning cutscenes or anything like that, you know? It's very much what you see is what you get. Splash Lake, woo, next one. Alright, it's been a little bit, so let's rank some more games, but first, can I just take a breath? I feel like I've talked non-stop for like 45 minutes now. Also, it's worth noting, Lords of the Rising Sun is disqualified. So, with that being said, let's get into it. Starting us off is Ys 3, taking 4th place. I enjoyed a lot about this game, but it is just too easy. Next up is It Came From the Desert, taking last place. I hated nearly everything about this game, and also it totally should have been disqualified in retrospect, as it has no save system or continue system or anything of the sort, but I've already gotten an ending from the game. I've already edited that section of the video, so fuck it, it's in there, and also it's last place. Valis 3, an incredibly good platformer with very good mechanics. As such, it's taking 2nd place. It just couldn't beat the length of Ys Book 1 and 2. Cosmic Fantasy 2. I really should hate this game, but it grew on me a lot. Maybe Stockholmed. But 7th place. Then lastly for now is Splash Lake. 9th place. It's fun, it's fine, there's just not much here. Okay. Back to the game reviews. I'll see y'all over there. Exile. So it's another Zelda 2-like in the same style as Ys 3 more than anything. Very similar to Ys 3. It's kind of shocking. I feel like I need to look more into this game and see if it's like the same team. Editing depths. Is this the same team of people? Because they look very similar. Except, in my opinion, Exile has a lot more going for it in terms of the story. The game starts out with this huge opening cutscene about how religion's gotten too powerful for its own good, and how putting so much focus on religion has caused wars between the different religions. It's a very strong start, and then the game very heavily steps off the gas plot-wise directly after. From my understanding, a lot of this game's more controversial elements got removed in its English localization. A shame, but makes sense for its 1992 release. All in all, overall, I don't really have much to say about this game. It's fine. The music really tries and it doesn't fail, but it's a solid 6 or 7. It's perfectly fine. And the graphics are also fine. They take a very heavy inspiration from the East games, but it all works. There's also some parts with blood waterfalls, and I think that looks really cool because I'm edgy like that. XD. Alright, so the part I've been stalling on talking about, the gameplay. It's fine. It's good controls, good level design all in all. There's some enemies where you have to memorize their locations, but it's all chill. Also, there's some good boss designs, but it's way too easy. If I had to pinpoint a problem, I think the leveling system increases your stats too much. Like, yeah, it's possible to make the levels harder if you don't kill anything and stay under level, but when given the option of having enemies take 4 hits, or farm for 10 minutes and kill everything in 1 hit, I'm always gonna do that 10-minute farm. It's too simple of a decision. Like, farming whatsoever in this game made it so incredibly easy. I first tried the majority of the game. Wish I was forced to pay more attention and take more of my time. The game never really made me think about it. It was just a fun, chill time. But yeah, side ramble. So, this game was localized by Working Designs. They're known for heavily changing games to be harder when localizing, and it's all kind of terrible, but it's really interesting to see how that mindset of theirs developed. Like, this game and Cosmic Fantasy 2, another game localized by them, were far too easy, so it makes a lot of sense why later on in their careers they would start changing games to be insanely hard. Alright, review. Over. I've said words. On to the next game.
Buster Balls. I'll soften my voice, so that's just how we're gonna do this recording. I feel like this is a game where what you see on screen is exactly what you get. It's a fully arcade game design. Limited continues. Totally disqualified. But it's very fun. You shoot the balls. Great time. I don't have really anything to say about this game other than it's really fun. I played it for hours. So yeah, it's time for the final game.
Vasteel. Created by Human Entertainment, who's also made games such as Monster Party, Clock Tower, and Mizurna Falls, and in this case, Vasteel. And then in classic Human fashion, this game has a much larger scale than it probably should. It took me a little over 50 hours to beat, so yeah, it took a while. Fun fact, this video was originally planned to be released on July 12th. I don't know when this video is actually releasing at this point, but I definitely missed the July 12th goal given the fact I'm recording this on the 18th. So what is Vasteel? It's a relatively simple hexagon strategy game. Also fun fact, this was my first time playing a strategy game. Your goal is to take over the other side's main base. However, doing so takes a fuck ton of resources, so it's highly likely you'll need to weaken the other side before going after their base, that way they don't just kill you. You'll do this mostly by taking over all of the other side's cities in each level. The more cities you have, the more money you get per turn. The more money you have, the stronger the robots you can build are. Also doing this will lower the budget of the other side, making their robots weaker. In a funny twist of fate, this game doesn't have that much actual strategy to it. While there are multiple types of robots, the main difference between them are 1, what type of ground they can move over easily, and 2, more expensive equals stronger. So you just figure out what type of ground the level is, and buy that kind of robot at a level that you can afford, and that's like it really, strategy-wise? That's not to say that there isn't anything going through my brain while playing though. Every time you fight a robot or attempt to take over a city, you have a real-time action section. Every robot has 2 types of guns, moves at a different speed. These fights all move very quickly, and really keep you paying attention, as the computer can start attacking you with no warning whatsoever, so you must pay at least a bit of attention. Talking more about the gameplay though, I cannot stress just how long this game is. It's not that things move slow, there's just a lot to move. Each team has a max number of 32 robots, and you hit that maximum number pretty often. Each robot needs to move on its own, so in a turn you can have 64 robots being selected to move when you include the other side. That's also not including how it's common to have up to 30 fights happen per turn. It's just a lot. And then levels, for me personally, roughly took between 10 to 30 turns. Like, I cannot stress enough just how much has to happen in order to beat a level. A part of that is due to the problem where it's really easy to stalemate almost in this game, where like if you're at a similar skill level to the CPU, then no one will gain ground, and just nothing really happens until someone plays better or worse than the other one. Like, there's gotta be a pretty significant like skill difference in order for stuff to happen in this game. And then there's like 15 to 20 levels. I'm not gonna lie, I lost count somewhere in those 50 hours I put into this game. I lost a lot of track of time playing this. Now, is this scale a bad thing? Honestly, probably not. It was a little bit hellish for me playing through the whole thing, but honestly, as a kid sitting down once a week doing one level here and there, I think this would have been really fun. It might not have ever beat the game, but it was fun. Yeah. That, and honestly, it's nice to just see longer games on this system, as I'll go into more detail a bit later, but going through this whole system really didn't take that long in the grand scheme of things. However, I do wish there was more variety in Vasteel. Like, there's 2 different types of cities, 2 forts, 2 bases, 1 for the normal levels and 1 for the space levels. And while they do have a heavy RNG element, such as where the turrets spawn. Spending 50 hours taking over 2 kinds of things, I wish there was so much more to do. What's here is really good though. And then that variety complaint also extends to the cutscenes. While the first cutscene in the game is very long, good, extremely well made, and it's funny, I've seen a lot of reviews of this game online talk about how good the cutscenes are, and like honestly, I don't think those people play through the entire game, because past that first cutscene, all of the cutscenes just use the same image, and there's only one image. The voice acting's alright though, and lacks the working design's normal humor, so that's good. But yeah, you play this for the gameplay. Graphic-wise, it's pretty poor. Alright, negatives over. The fucking music, it's so good. It's this very chill jazz OST, handful of good songs, none of them really miss. And if you get tired of hearing a song in the menu, you can always swap to another. It's an incredibly good OST for the chill vibe of the gameplay. Also, can I just say, it felt so good to go insane playing a game. I'm not sure if I had the endurance to beat this one. I play a lot of games, and at this point, 90% of games don't really push me that much, and this one, oh, this one pushed me off a cliff. It was fun, it was good. And one more thing to note is that I only did one scenario in this game. This game has a whole second scenario where you play as the other team, which means that you get to start from all the other starting locations in every level, and yeah, I spent 50 hours in this game doing one route. You can easily make this an over 100-hour game, and I think that is worth noting. And yeah, that's Vasteel. A simple game, but its sheer size is enough to keep me thinking about it forever, honestly. Alright, so time for the final game ranking, cause we did it. We fucking beat all of the games in the project. It's also worth noting though that Buster Bros is disqualified. Very fun arcade game though, but yeah, let's get into it. So starting us off is going to be Exile in 6th place. Very similar to East 3, but too easy, so it placed one spot below it, though also East 3 is honestly too easy. Vasteel would be taking 4th place. This game nearly fucking killed me, so I gotta respect it for that, you know? Also being put next to another 50-hour game, Murder Club, though I felt Murder Club just had more in general, so it takes the lead. And that leaves us with East Book 1 and 2 as our #1 game. It's got the length, it's got the story, it's got the gameplay, and the bosses, and everything you ever need. However, it's followed very, very closely by Valis 3. Honestly, I think Valis 3 is more fun and borderline the more polished game, but Valis 3 is so much shorter, it loses a lot of points for that, but both are absolutely must-plays. Honestly, there really isn't a bad game for this system, except for, like, it came from the desert, maybe Fighting Street. But yeah, talking on how long games took, I made a graph, so So yeah, cross-style games are the ones getting disqualified. Everything else went really fast or really slowly. There really wasn't much in between for the system. Like, yeah, Cosmic Fantasy 2 and Vasteel both took fucking forever. Like what, Vasteel took more than a third of my time. But in total, 155 hours for 4 years of games. Shocked it didn't take me longer. I kinda wish there were more long games. As for my case of going through all these, it was really nice to be able to go through them all quickly, but I feel like if I was like a kid growing up with the system and having to wait months for a new game, and for that game to only be 3 hours long, yeah, I would be majorly upset. Like, let's actually look at the release lineup for the system, like, time-wise. So, yeah. There's a lack of games. There's multiple 5-month spans of no games. That's wild. And what's also wild to me is how NEC and Hudson Soft, the people who made this system and own this system, didn't develop a single game for the system. At least that got localized over here. NEC did help localize and publish a ton of games over here, but they didn't actually make anything themselves. And yeah, that's a shocking lack of support. It's a huge shame. Honestly, to me personally, this system felt a lot like a Laser Active's console. Like, it's not, but like, they developed so many more games for this than like everyone else. But yeah, you know, lack of support. It's a shame, but games are good. So yeah, final thoughts on the TurboGrafx-CD. It's a lot easier of a game lineup than I expected. I've played hundreds of NES games, and I'm really used to games pushing me to my limit, and some games straight up being impossible for me personally. However, this lineup of games was overall really easy. Like, there were some mental challenges here and there with how long games were, but in terms of skill, it was pretty smooth. The Valis series is really cool. I want to play more Valis series games. And then the East series not being all bump combat, also that series is really cool. I want to play more of that as well. Cool series. Happy to learn about them. There was a lot less FMV than I expected. Also, there were no shoot 'em ups. Just strange. The soundtracks were all fucking amazing. I'm kind of thinking that maybe we peaked on making game OSTs on the world's first CD home video game system. Sorry to the PS5 or whatever is popular when you're watching this, but you know, I think the TurboGrafx-CD might have you beat in terms of soundtracks. Honestly, I'm more patient than I thought I was. Me being able to beat 50+ hour games, I didn't think I was capable of that, so, you know, that's cool. A lot of satisfaction of being able to do that. These games in general were all really good. Not gonna lie, I kind of feel like I spent the whole Master System video complaining about how bad the games were, and It feels nice to cover a system that like actually has good shit. Also, I really enjoyed making this video. The Master System video was a fucking struggle, but with this system and having a 10th of the games, it was so much easier to manage. I feel like I was actually able to keep up with editing for this one. During the production of the Master System video, I was always like weeks behind on editing and recording footage. As such, a lot of that video is completely unedited, so I could try and catch up to like what I was actually playing at the time of making the video. Where in this video, the games took a little longer and I was able to edit a lot faster than I was able to play the games. As such, I just had more time to edit. Like, the bottleneck was definitely the games, especially Vasteel near the end, where the Master System, it was all in the editing. Yeah, with Vasteel being the final game, it took me about 10 days to beat, and I had no new footage to edit for 10 days. So I just redid a fuck ton of shit in this video. Like, I redid the entire intro, I changed a good, I feel like half the game reviews to make them slightly higher quality, just added in the editing, make things faster paced, added more polish. Yeah, and everything just went so smoothly on this video. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun making this video. And yeah, with that, I think the TurboGrafx-CD is a very good system that was probably doomed to fail in America due to competition and just lack of games. So thank you for watching this full thing, it means a lot to me for you to spend your time with my content, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next video, however long that takes me to make. Oh, also, one last thing. I stream on Twitch a ton. I streamed the entirety of me going through all of these games over there, so yeah, if you want a more recent update for what I've been up to, feel free to check the link probably in the description. Somewhere. I'm just DepsVT. But yeah, okay, bye.